All right, and welcome back to another episode of Coach Mike and OB. Today we have Coach Mike's dad as a guest, Mr. Jay Lovelle. Jay, can you just give us a quick introduction on how you got into basketball and your experience with the sport?
Well, we're going to have to go back a little bit here, but I'll tell you what, it's been at least about 40 years, maybe more than 40 years. Of course, I started playing basketball when I was like 12. I was IHSA basketball official for about 25 years. I also coached at Wakanda High School, sophomore, when Mike was like, I think he was 5 and Joy was 2. I also ran feeder programs. I've done AAU. Uh, I think that was probably my first calling basketball, but I never made it as far as I wanted to. But I've had a lot of years when it comes to basketball, that's for sure.
All right. Yeah, so definitely a lot of experience. So we're going to do a kind of a throwback episode here. We're going to be talking starting off with the 90s Bowls and with The Last Dance just coming out this last spring. What was your experience with like living through the 90s Bowls? Because we obviously were like 3 years old by the time it was over. So we never really got to experience that hype and that like exciting ride through like those six championships.
Well, the funny part is they probably could have had 9 championships if Mr. Jordan did not have to go play baseball, or let me rephrase that, chose to play baseball. So we'll leave that one there. Uh, but they could have actually won probably 9 championships because as soon as he came back, they won 3 more. The only thing they were lacking before, because they had this kind of about the same players, the only thing they were lacking was maybe the coaching. Uh, and they were lacking obviously a big man. Even though nowadays the game, people don't think you really need a big man to win a championship. But I disagree with that because your big men now, they really don't play inside as much. But when they need to, I think they have to play. But again, you still need a big man inside to actually win a championship, in my opinion. And actually, the Bulls, once they got Bill Cartwright, which was a trade that people thought was the worst thing in the world, they traded him for Charles Oakley. Uh, and Charles Oakley went to the Knicks, and he came to the Bulls. And right after that, they started winning. And then at one of the championships, they had the three-headed monster, which were Will Purdue. Uh, I forgot the other two gentlemen's name, but they were both over 7-footers. They're not Hall of Famers whatsoever, but they showed a presence in the middle, and that's what kind of, I think, in my opinion, kind of helped them, win those championships. I mean, you could just let me put it this way: Michael made a lot of people famous, and it made them. There's a guy in Golden State named Steve Kerr that had a 3-point shot
Mhm.
that nobody really knew who he was, and it made him famous. Obviously, the guy deserves it, but again, uh, I really believe the Bulls of the '90s could have probably won 9 championships. We're holding the best record ever in the NBA. I think they lost 11 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Golden State actually beat that record, but
But what happened to Golden State after they beat that record?
they didn't go on to win 6 championships. That's for sure.
Okay, so what's the most important thing, right?
Right. I mean, I also think too, like after watching the documentary, and obviously, like Obrakta said, I wasn't really around. Like I wasn't really born for majority of the run. I mean, I was really little, and I remember very little. But what about the front office and the management? That was one of the biggest things I feel like was touched on in The Last Dance was the front office and the management back then. Um, it just wasn't. I felt like Krause wanted all the credit. He wanted all of he wanted all the credit because, oh, I drafted Jordan, I'm this, I'm that, the team is this because of that. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think what people need to realize that all these guys have egos, and
Yeah.
even if you're 5'7" or if you're 6'9", they'll have egos, and they want to be the main reason why let's say the Bulls were that famous or that great. I mean, uh, Krause was obviously what he did was unbelievable, but I also got to blame him for getting rid of the team, which I still, in my opinion, I thought they had another run in him, maybe two. But he decided to, he wants to bring all these young guys in, which we're still waiting for the next championship. You know what I mean? But I guess it's just about egos, and I think Jerry Reinsdorf, because he also owns the White Sox, let Krause run everything, And Krause, whether people like him or not, he helped the Bulls when he was the mastermind behind it when it comes to getting the players, not the coaching, but getting the players. But again, he wanted to dismantle that team way before. I mean, because he thought he might bring the younger guys in, and basically what the Bulls did, they added people. Dennis Rodman, which we all hate when he was with Detroit.
Right, exactly.
Obviously.
The guy plays phenomenal defense. He's unbelievable. I mean, the guy will give up a layup to give somebody an open shot. That's just the way he was. Besides everything else, getting dressed, in a wedding outfit and all that stuff. I mean, a wedding gown. The guy was just. But all these guys, they came in and just filled the spots that needed, and they came in and realizing their role. And I think that's why the Bulls are so successful. But again, Jerry Krause has a lot to do with that. He definitely had a lot to do with it because he brought them in, and of course the Sandmaster, Mr. Phil Jackson, he's the one behind it. But we also need to realize that a coach is only as good as his assistant coaches and as good as his players, especially at that level. When players make more than coaches, it's kind of hard to a lot of these guys to buy into that. It's about the me, not it's not about the team itself. So
makes sense.
And then what about The Last Dance when you were watching it? What was kind of one of the biggest moments? I didn't realize that was happening during that time frame, that last year, or even in some of the early episodes when Jordan was talking about his college and getting drafted. Is there anything that was really shocking and surprising that you didn't realize was happening during that run?
No, I think the public, even though a lot of stuff behind closed doors we didn't know about, but Michael Jordan was always the type of guy that the guy always wanted to win. He practiced hard, he played hard.
Mhm.
And a lot of these guys didn't want to buy into that. A lot of guys, okay, Allen Iverson's a perfect guy. Guy's a phenomenal player, but he never believed in practice.
Oh,
Which is wrong. And
yep.
Michael wanted to, and that's the difference when it comes to championships too. That's another story for another day. But Michael wanted to win. He wanted to play hard. He wanted to win. The other stuff they talked about, the gambling and all that stuff. Who the hell knows? I mean, the kind of money these people make. I mean, God bless them for being gifted to be that good. Because if I'm not mistaken, Michael Jordan's brother's like 5'8".
Mhm.
Yeah, he's pretty short.
So I mean, and Michael's 6'6", and Michael's kids. I mean, they're never good as their dad. And
No, they got to live up to that though.
But no, I think financially right now, they have a career, and it's not obviously it has to do with sports, with Michael's brand. So I think it has a lot to do with that. They're just following the footsteps. Not everybody can be an NBA player. We all know that.
Yeah.
Anybody can be an NFL football star. But again, it's one of those things that the guy was just gifted to be what he was, in my opinion. He's just the best player I've ever seen. And we could talk about the Kobe's, which I love Kobe.
Mhm.
We could talk about all the other players, the LeBrons, and people now, like you guys' generation, will say LeBron's better. Well, no, because Michael did everything with one team, okay? But then I also understand back in that era, loyalty was different than what it is now. Now, I think now the NBA or every professional sport, it's a business. So if you give me $5 million, but the Alaska whatever are going to give me $10 million, guess where I'm going? It's a business job. It's a job. And, even though it's a sport, it's a kid's sport, but you make millions of billions of dollars in it, you're going to go to the highest bidder, whether you win or lose. And guys like Carmelo wants to win a championship. That's why Carmelo's with the Lakers. Is he going to win a championship? I don't think he's going to.
I don't either.
Yeah.
He was selfish. Every time you watch Carmelo play, all Carmelo cared about is scoring. He never played defense. He's got an NCAA championship when he played at Syracuse when I think he was a freshman. He's actually the same age as LeBron. And he's got a gold medal, of course, but he's never won that championship. I mean, why do you think he's with the Lakers? He wants that get that championship. Is he going to get it? I don't think they are.
No.
We don't think so either.
So many guys just jumped on the bandwagon. I mean,
you know what? He's accomplished everything. Yeah. He's filthy rich. He's got an NCAA ring. He's got an Olympic ring. So what is he waiting? He wants the ultimate goal.
What's that last piece of hardware?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then going with you're talking about people in our generation now I know I get into arguments with people all the time about LeBron being a better player, and statistically, you can make those arguments. His 3-point shooting is better. He's played more minutes now. He's played longer in the NBA. But I always talk about the mentality of like the superstars nowadays with LeBron always backing on Twitter or Kevin Durant having like burner accounts. What do you think like the mentality of our superstars nowadays versus in the 90s and 80s, like where like the mentality is in like the toughness of the game?
Well, we also need to understand that everything has changed. Back in the '90s, you don't have the the technology that you have now
Mhm.
when it comes to the media. I mean, you like you said yourself, you go on Facebook or you do this, Twitter, whatever. Back then, Michael didn't have that. Do I believe if the players back then had that, they would have been in trouble? Absolutely, right? Absolutely, would definitely been in
Yeah.
trouble because I used to go to a place, the Hyatt it's in the Plains it was not 53, but it's around Cumberland Avenue. And I remember going there, and the Celtics had just came into town, and Robert Parrish, Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, all those guys, Bill Walton, they all came in there after a game, and people were all over them. Nowadays, those guys don't do that. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just a different type of world now because social media has created this monster when it comes to uh, getting people to say in trouble. And if I'm not mistaken, professional athletes get a class when they make it to the pros on how to avoid things like that.
Yep.
You can't
Yep.
hang around with this guy or that guy because you grew up with them because you can't. You just can't. Because a career could be over within seconds, whether it's true or false
Mhm.
that people say something, which a lot of times is false because they want some type of, some type of money or some type of favor or whatever. So that's what the issue comes in with that. Now, back in the '90s, you didn't have the social media. They did more things and got away with more things than they can do now.
Mhm.
Now, right
Right.
now, see, I'm a big believer that athletes are athletes, politicians, and everybody. But nowadays they have this platform that they think they have to give their opinion. Well, they're entitled to it. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people follow their opinion, and when you don't know what you're talking about, and that's basically what this is about.
Mhm.
A lot of these, like LeBron, will start talking about politics, but you don't know about politics. You know what I mean? It's the same thing if Trump was in office. He's talking about basketball. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. But you do have this platform that nowadays people follow. Oh, LeBron said this. Well, it's not true. But they follow because LeBron said it. The best
Right.
quote that I ever heard was from a guy named Charles Barkley. And he always said this. He said, I'm not here to erase your parents. No, that's not what he said. I'm not, you shouldn't look up to me. You should look up to your parents. I'm not your idol. Your parents are your idol.
Mhm.
He
Right.
said that, and people nowadays probably criticize him for that, but he's right. People they want, they want their kids to look up to athletes, and it's like, well, why don't you look up to a doctor or your lawyer? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Not that there's not bad doctors or whatever, but again, you should look up to your parents because they're the ones that are going to raise you. But no, a lot of this, social media does is these parents, when you go to AAU, they want their kids to, to make it to the NBA, for example. And it's like, you're not going to make it. The percentage is so small. God bless you if you do make it. But if you get a 4-year scholarship, get that education. And then if you want to pursue sports, you can pursue sports, not obviously playing on the court, but doing something else. There's a lot of avenues. But again, it's the times have changed. And social media has a lot to do with it. Whether it's good or bad, I think it's good in certain things. I think it's bad in certain things because it can destroy a person or it can make a person great. So it goes either way, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
And do you think social media has led to more super teams being created because players have been able to communicate faster with each other and be able to privately talk without being having seen in public, being able to coordinate like LeBron did with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh when he first went to Miami,
Right.
or Kevin Durant with Kyrie Irving. You see them in that All-Star game. After the game, they're talking, and Kyrie's saying like, "Hey, there's two spots," and then a season later, Kevin Durant leaves the Golden State Warriors, and they're both in Brooklyn. Do you think that it has made it easier for players to group up like that?
Well, I think that's a good. I think that's good. I mean, obviously, if you're a team owner, you say, "Yeah, let's get this player." If you're friends with him, absolutely, because you want to win that championship. And you know what? You might be okay. Look at the Bucks. They won the championship last year. They might even make the playoffs. You never know because so many things happen.
Yep.
You know, Kyrie, and of course now he's not playing because of COVID or whatever. And they're not going to win a championship. New Jersey, you guys, they're actually Brooklyn,
Hmm.
but it should be called New Jersey Nets. They're Brooklyn Nets. But that being said, they're not going to win. Everybody last year, nobody had any idea Milwaukee was going to win. So if you can get all those players together, that's going to make you a better team and bring that championship. Guess what? One championship is better than none.
Hmm.
And I guarantee you, there's not going to be any of these teams in the NBA or NFL or even in baseball, as you just saw, that are going to be able to repeat. It is very hard to repeat at any of these levels because, again, you recruit guys that, hey, I can get this guy over to play. Why not? They should. You get
Right.
in the ring,
Well, you talk about business too,
That's
You
just
talk
it.
about how it's a business. You see a lot of these teams, they'll form a team, they'll win the championship, and they're usually on like a 1-year deal, or they have, a 1-year deal,
Mhm.
or they can opt out of it. So you see a lot of these teams, even after they win, that they rebuild. Sometimes you see teams that stick together because they're on long contracts, but the role players and the guys that they get are really the ones that are going to help you win that championship. And I do agree with you. I think if Brooklyn doesn't, I'm sorry, not Brooklyn. If the Bucks can stay healthy, I think they got some good pieces. But like you said, it's very hard to repeat at every level. Um, but I mean, like I have one question for you, Dad. It's like,
Yeah.
who's your early prediction to win right now?
Right now, I'm
Right
telling
now,
you,
it's early, but I
Golden
want to know.
State. Golden State.
I said that.
I just, the way they're playing, and actually even the Phoenix Suns in the beautiful state of Arizona, which I'm not a fan, are playing really well right now. I
Yeah.
think disappointments. You got Portland. I mean, all these teams. Milwaukee's definitely a disappointment in my opinion.
Yep.
The Celtics. I think they're 500 now. The Lakers. I never really thought the Lakers because I believe age. You're not Tom Brady. It's a different type of sport. That
Hmm.
can
Yeah,
be
you're right.
hell of a quarterback.
Yeah.
You need your legs a little bit more. Tom can, that's my favorite football player of all times. But that being said, it's just hard. It's just really hard. Do I think LeBron just come back today from being out for 10 games? I think there were 4-6 when he was out.
Yep.
I don't think
Yeah.
they win because no matter how good a shape you are, Mother Nature. I'm sorry, you're old, and this is a different sport than even like same thing with baseball. You're not quick enough to hit. Football is different. Tom Brady is a special person, but he's also a quarterback. You know,
He's also trained his body, and he
right?
has literally worked his whole life around the sport. He has changed his diet as he's grown older,
Yeah.
and he's changed how he plays too. He doesn't escape the pocket. He hasn't run out of the pocket nearly as much as he did when he first started years ago. And we have LeBron, who's now been out, twice in the first 5 weeks of the season.
Mhm.
He's still trying to do twisty dunks, trying to blow past people, and his body is not going to be able to maintain that throughout the season now. He needs to learn to, instead of dunking the ball when he's got a way open, just lay it up. Save your body for the playoffs. Don't throw it away on a wide open dunk that you just are going to be flashy.
He's got to adapt to the game. This is really what it is that as you get older, your athleticism goes down, your conditioning goes down, and whatever the case may be. But overall, your IQ gets better. I mean, look at Chris Paul. That's a great example. Chris Paul is old. I mean, but he's still one of the best point guards. He's averaging the most steals in the NBA right now. And he's got a really good max contract after they made it to the finals. So as you get older, your IQ gets better, but the athleticism goes down, the conditioning goes down. You just become a smarter player. So I agree with you, OB. I think that LeBron definitely needs to start adapting his game, especially if he's going to be taking some time off once in a while, especially and he's got that really old team. I mean, some of those guys are going to be taking time off as well. So whatever they need to do, but I agree with you. He needs to save his body for the playoffs because they didn't even make the playoffs last year. So they need to step it up. So
They made the playoffs last year. Sure they did.
who, the Lakers?
Phoenix.
Yeah, they lost to Phoenix in the first round.
See, I don't even remember because they've like LeBron. That was the first time LeBron's lost in the first round, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you might be right
So
about that.
that's probably why I forgot about it. So, oh well.
The thing with LeBron is that he's got 37-year-old legs, and older than that, he's been playing basketball since he was probably 7 or 8.
Third most miles in the NBA.
Exactly. So now you're going up against 19-year-olds who are just as big and as athletic as you are, more athletic now because they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Again, back to the Lakers. I don't think they're going to win. I know they surrounded themselves with a bunch of senior citizens when it comes to basketball. I mean, but basketball years. I mean,
Yeah.
they get what's his name back? Superman. What's his name?
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard. I mean,
And he's been terrible since they picked him up.
Well, he's old.
They're all old.
Well,
they're going to be in wheelchairs next week.
They're senior citizens.
I keep telling Mike it's an infirmary waiting to happen.
There you go. But again, I mean, the basketball has changed, but I think it has changed more. You know what really stinks about basketball, in my opinion, right now? That the NBA is not being ref the way it should be. And if you watch the playoffs, defense and calls are made more, and there's more defense being there called travel. They call,
Yep.
And what really stinks about it, you got high school kids trying to watch that.
Yep.
Like when they just now changed the rule, like James Harden goes up and if somebody passes gas on him, it's a foul. Kids in high school want to do it. Like, well, that's a foul. It's an NBA. No, it's not. But again, and this is and in college, it's getting to that point a little bit too. The physicality is there. Now it's more physical. There's no doubt about it. The NBA, college is very physical.
Yep.
And you know what? There should be contact. There's no reason arguing that point. But then you do it at the high school level, and the kids watch that like, well, that's a foul. No, it's not a foul. But again, it's the perception that they watch that, and then they all think that they're 5'8" and they're playing a 4 spot. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
It's just different times. That's all it is. Yeah. Different times.
And do you think the reffing has been a little bit better this year than in the past couple? Because I mean, I know they put the rule change in now, so they're not calling those fouls like on Harden anymore. And he's been really struggling because of it, because his body's gotten so used to throwing his arms up every time he gets touched, and now his shots are nowhere near the basket, and he's not getting the calls anymore. So his play has decreased. And I think that the game's been a lot better this year than it was last year, even the past like 5 years. So
yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I agree, because now it's not. Now you watch like James Harden goes and took a 3 last year and he twisted. It's a foul. Mm-hmm. That's not a foul if you're going to let the inside guy be. There's so much contact inside. And that's not a foul. You can't call verticality on everything because it's not there. But you calling a foul on something that the guy was like, it wasn't even touched,
right.
And don't give me you got to give him room to come down. The guy's standing straight up. He went into him, But again, I'm glad that rule has changed. And I think it has, to answer your question, it has changed the game a lot. I like it better now because, hey, guess what, Mr. Harden? Now all of a sudden you're not going to get 30 points a game because you taking threes like you do in practice, Somebody's going to defend you.
Yeah, I think it also helps with the flow of the game because you're not stopping almost every other play on these random calls that aren't even basketball moves anymore. And it's actually allowing for non-stars to show more potential because you're allowing them to get into a flow of a game a lot better. And they're being able to actually run offenses. They're allowed to jump up and try to block shots. They're not, and all that type of stuff.
I think what I think is when I watch like the Olympics, I try to look at that type of basketball and I think to myself, why isn't the NBA that physical? And I think that's a big reason why Team USA lost that first game in France. They're not used to that physicality. They're used to being pampered. They're used to getting the calls that they want because they're superstars in the NBA. And in the Olympics, they didn't let it happen. So the physicality is different. And even though the physicality is different, that doesn't necessarily mean that the refs are not always going to call everything, right? So they were very lenient on calls unless it was really aggressive. Obviously, Team USA got it together. They're the best players in the entire world. But I mean, just imagine that, OB, Dad. Imagine that. Imagine if the NBA was as physical as it was in the how it is in like FIBA or how it is in the Olympics or how it is overseas. How do you guys think the game would the game change? What do you guys think?
It would change because if you take a shot, it goes above the rim, you could knock it out. That's one rule right there, which is like, really? So where's goaltending? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were not used to that. So those rule changes are a little different.
So personally, I think that's a dumb rule. I think that rule should be taken away. Basketball should be basketball no matter what. Just like baseball is baseball, football. You know what I mean? You got it. Those are rules that make no sense.
Yeah.
You know. So, but again, European players are just they're more. Well, how can I say? They're more like
they're more fundamental. That's for sure.
More fundamentally sound, but they're not the rough and tough playing inside type of players.
Right. They go inside out.
They're 6'11", 7 feet and taking 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They're. I don't want to say they're soft, but at one time they were called. They were very European players are always soft.
Yep.
Because they don't like the physical contact. Obviously, that's changed now. But I think the rules should be international rules, FIFA rules, whatever. It should be all NBA. It should be just basketball rules, and they're all the same except obviously for high school because the 3-pointer. That's certain things like that, but. High school eventually is starting to change. There's parts of the country right now they have a 24-second clock, I think maybe. So
for high school.
Yeah, but that's
wow.
But the whole thing with that is some schools cannot afford to have that. You see what I'm saying? It's but it's the high school game. The college game is made into like the NBA game. And if you watch, I was watching college game today, West Virginia against Marquette. It's the same thing as the NBA. The physicality, everything. And the high school is going to get to that point too. It's going to be just like the college game. Obviously, they're not as athletic as Division I, basketball players, but, it's going to get to that point eventually. But again, I think European players are, at one time, like I said, they were called soft. They're not soft anymore. But still, if you look at the Dallas Mavericks, what's that 7'3" gentleman they have?
Porzingis.
He don't know the inside looks like.
Soft. But then you look at the complete opposite. You look at a guy like Giannis, and he is an absolute monster. There's nothing soft about that guy. So you're right.
But he can't buy a 3-pointer unless, he's playing in Milwaukee somewhere or shoot a free throw. And Giannis is great. I think he's great. He's
phenomenal.
He's like, what, 7 foot tall?
7'2". I swear to God, he's like 7'3".
Yeah, he's like 6'11" according to NBA.
Yeah, that's not true. They say LeBron's 6'8". He's like 6'9", 6'10".
But his game is not really inside. I mean, if Giannis could take 3 points, if he makes 2 or 3-pointers in a row, guess what he's going to be doing? Taking 3-pointers.
Probably.
When he takes it inside, he can't be stopped. But again, that's part of the European mentality that, I'm soft, but he's not soft. You know what I'm saying? European players have always been considered soft.
Yes. You look at guys like I said, Giannis, you look at guys like Joel Embiid. I mean, those guys are anything but soft. But the thing out of all those guys is that Joel Embiid can stretch the floor. He can hit threes. Giannis isn't there yet. I mean, he takes a couple threes here and there. But overall, that stigma about, European players being soft, I think that obviously like it's starting to get more physical in that sense. You look at like Luka. I mean, Luka, he's kind of soft, but like he played professional for so long that I was reading something and it said that he said that playing overseas or playing like in the European leagues is actually harder than playing in the NBA. So yeah. So I don't know if it's, per player or where you're from or whatever the case may be, but I think that stigma is starting to slowly go away. So,
you know what? I just think that it's not just the European players. Every big man wants to shoot a 3. And here's where I come with this. Back in the old days, not that old, but old days, we had, if you were 6'10", you were a center. If you were 6'1", you were a guard. You know what I'm saying? That mentality, that's what the NBA was. And that's what high school was or college was, okay? If you're that big, you play in the 4. If you're 6'9", you play in the 4. Now, if you look up the Indiana Hoosiers, when Bobby Knight was coaching, he came out with the first 6'9" point guard before Magic, okay? 6'9", we go, this guy's crazy. He's 6'9", he's biggest of forward. I can't think of the guy's name, but that was a team with Scott Benson. That was the last college basketball team to go undefeated. Scott Benson, Scott May, Kent Benson, all those guys made it in the NBA, but I can't think of the. Excuse me, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Right.
Jumping into the next thing, one question I have for you. How do you think the 3-point line has changed the game? Because I know, like, when you think of guys back in your day that used to shoot the ball, guys that come to my mind are like Larry Bird, right? Like Larry Bird was kind of like the guy back then, or like Reggie Miller, right? Like those guys were really like the 3-point guys that you thought of. And now that you look in the NBA, you're kind of thinking, wow, a lot of these guys can all really stretch the floor and they can all shoot. It's like, how do you think the 3-point line has changed the game?
Well, I think that everybody that plays in the NBA wants to take a three, no matter how big they are. The NBA, the 3-point line in the NBA, do I think should be moved back a little bit? Yeah, but that comes from, everybody should be a 3-point shooter. Just like what I was saying earlier, if you're a 6'1" guard, you want to play inside. If you're a 6'11" or 6'10" center, you want to play outside. It was always reverse roles like that.
Mhm.
But now what is done is like the taller guys can hit that 3-pointer. See what I'm saying? So now you can have a 6'8", 6'9" guard that's a point guard. The old days was if you're 5'11", 6'1", you were a point guard. They went by size. That's the way it was. Not anymore. It's not like that. Look at Luka.
Right.
What is he, 6'9"? He handles the ball, so
You could have a 7-foot Jokic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, things have changed because it's just different eras, different styles. I mean, if you look at the NBA back in what did I say, the 60s, when Rick Barry used to shoot free throws, bottom up. I mean, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
There you
We
go.
can hear you.
I can hear you.
All right. Zoom technical difficulties. Gotta love it.
It happens. I'll fix it for you guys, but I don't want to embarrass you guys. But no. So what was this conversation we're having there?
Talking about the 3-point line.
Oh, you know what? The 3-point line, I don't think the NBA has really moved it back, but I'm not sure. It's not far enough, basically. It's far enough. Well, it's far enough, but we're talking grown men who can shoot a ball in their hand, hold a basketball in their hand, looks like a baseball, like normal sized people, except for you, Brock, that were 6'9".
6'8".
6'8", sorry. But no, seriously, when they hold a basketball in their hands, it looks like a baseball. It's like the average person holding a baseball. So it's like them chucking up a baseball. You know what I mean? So do they need to move it back? I don't think so, because they still miss a lot of shots.
Yeah, we're still looking at average of probably less than 30% across the board. Just because Steph Curry hits, 40% throughout the year, like we're not going to move back just because, well, I mean, we have done that before in the past, putting the restricted zone for Shaq or changing up, stuff like that. But it would be unfortunate for pretty much 90% of the league if they all of a sudden had to shoot 3 feet farther back just because Steph Curry is lighting it up.
Right.
Do you think that they should implement a 4-point line? You ever watch the Big Three? Big Three, they have a 4-point line where they have like certain areas where you can shoot. If that was the case, Steph Curry would be living on that.
But you know what, though? It's just like at the NBA or officiating that we're talking about having 4 officials too. It's like, you know what?
That's a lot.
But okay, because so many calls are missed. Well, yeah, it's human nature. People are going to miss calls, just like when you go for a layup, you miss a layup or you miss a dunk. Same thing.
Right.
But you can't make it perfect because nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Do I agree with the instant replay? Absolutely.
Yep.
Especially like 2 minutes in a game. Absolutely. At every sport. It makes a big difference, because officials are humans and they make mistakes just like everybody else.
I like the new challenge rule also.
I was just about to say that, OB.
What is the new challenge rule? I'm a little bit behind there.
So basically what that means is that you're able to challenge a play. And correct me if I'm wrong, Abrakta, does it have to be, it can't be under 2 minutes, right? Or double check that. But anyways, the whole point of it, Dad, is that basically you can challenge a play and basically the refs will go to the monitor and they can review a play. And a lot of teams do it like last minute. If there's like, a bad call, like if it goes off someone else's, and it can be like the determining factor of the game. So
a coach can challenge any of these 3 types of plays: a personal foul call made against the team at any time, an out of bounds call during the first 46 minutes of regulation and the first 3 minutes of overtime, and goaltending basket interference calls during the first 46 minutes of regulation and 3 minutes of overtime. And that's probably because they already do instant replays in the last 2 minutes.
So what do you think about that?
You know what? Oh, Jesus. I think that if you want to make the game better, and especially like in the playoffs, I think it's a good idea.
And they only get one a game.
You
won a game.
Yeah.
And if you challenge and you don't win the challenge, you lose the timeout like football or no?
I don't think so.
I believe you have to call a timeout first, and then you have to ask for the replay during the timeout.
Okay.
That makes sense.
For stands, if the challenge is successful, the team keeps its timeout. If the call on the floor stands, then the timeout is wasted.
Okay.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Actually,
it's kind of like the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw the red flag. You challenge it. If you win it, you keep your timeout. If you lose it, you lose the timeout.
Yep.
Yeah. Either way, you're giving up a timeout. So,
to make the game better, because athletes are stronger, faster, and there's so much that they do now to stay stronger and faster. Not like the olden days, I guess, when Babe Ruth played baseball. Suppose he get drunk the night before, and come up and hit a couple of home runs. But like I said, there's so much nutrition. The times have changed, and again, that's why Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So again, it's one of those things that is your job, and that's why I get mad when somebody misses a free throw, like a Ben Simmons. When that is your job, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's your job to make free throws.
Right.
If I have a better free throw percentage than some of the guys in the NBA, that's a problem, right? Like that should be a problem.
The whole thing is that is your job. Be good at it. But this goes back again, the Ben Simmons type, that they've been spoiled their lives. They're being catered to from AAU and college. He went to LSU because he had to go 1 year of college to make the NBA. Do I believe out of high school you should go if you're good enough? Absolutely. Because guess what? Back in those days, you only hear about the 3% or the 2% that make it, but there was another 50% that never made it, but nobody heard anything about them.
You're right. I think the only active players right now in the NBA that have come from high school
LeBron
are LeBron and Dwight Howard. I think those are the only. Those are the only two current. I think I am. Those are the only two current players in the NBA right now that have come from. You don't have to go to 1 year in college; they can just come right from high school. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I think about that
NBA,
rule.
They're being hypocrites, okay? And I'll tell you why they're being hypocrites.
Tell me, Jay.
You're in baseball. You're a senior in high school. You can go to Major League Baseball. Obviously, not going to the major, but you're going to minor league getting paid.
Yep.
Okay. But you're telling a high school kid who's probably 6'8", 6'9", that he has to go to college for a year. Okay. College for a year so he can play in the NBA. Why? He wants to go to work. That's his job. But guess what? The NCAA, when it comes to basketball, how many billions of dollars they make?
A lot.
That's why Duke, now you have the one and out. You see what I'm saying?
One and done. Yeah.
One and done is what I meant. Yeah. But basically, it wasn't like that before. Coach K would not take players that were going to be one and out. But guess what? You want to get the best players? You want to try to win an NCAA championship? Guess what you got to do? They're all doing it now. It's just part. College basketball is a factory for NBA players. Okay. Except, of course, probably like the Ivy League or something like that. Because obviously, if you're that good, why would you go to an Ivy League school to play basketball? Even though first you got to be smart enough to get in there, but why would you want to go there when you can go to North Carolina and next year you'll be in the NBA making millions of dollars? Which there is nothing wrong with that at all. So
Can't you go to the G League now?
You can,
You can go to the G League now. You don't have to go to college anymore. And if you go to the G League, you could still get paid, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you do get paid, but but why would you want to go there? You might as well go play in Australia or somewhere else.
Yeah, because you can do overseas instead also.
Now, I believe if you're good enough, you should be allowed to play right away. You do it obviously in football, you can't do it because physically you're not ready. There's no doubt about that. That's a different world there. But again, baseball, even in baseball, when you're not ready to go to the majors right away, 2 or 3 years, you get stronger and better. It's the same thing. But then basketball, you're not paying. There's high school baseball players get millions of dollars in contracts, minor league out of high school. So it's kind of like, hey, but again, when it comes to the NBA and the NCAA when basketball, it's a little bit, it's, I'm trying to find the right words to say it. It's making money for schools. That's all there is to it. They
That's
make
exactly what
millions
it is.
football and basketball make millions of dollars for all these colleges and all these executive and all these coaches. Without those players, they wouldn't make. I mean, the average bowl game when it comes to football, all you got to do is win 6 games. The average bowl game is $1 million per school, win or lose. Which, guess what? I don't think helps out the baseball, the tennis, lacrosse, because does anybody go watch these sports? Yeah, they do. But you're not going to get a sold out 90,000 watching University of Wisconsin play Michigan. You know what I mean? You're not going to get a basketball sold out 25, every game. So
what's the rule now?
What?
When it comes to the college thing now, like, are they allowed to get paid now, or what is the rule on that now?
July 1st, 2021, the NCAA has approved temporary policy to allow college athletes in 3 divisions to get paid for the use of their name, image, and likeness.
So if they use their jersey and stuff, but that's fine. They're using it
because that was like a big
salary. Right?
No, not salary, but I know that was a big thing. I forgot which team it was. College team it was back during one of the NCAA championships. They were walking around and they saw their jerseys being sold and they got really upset.
That was Duke. I think that was Duke, and that was Jabari Parker. Yep, that was Jabari Parker because he made a statement about that, saying how come they can sell my name and my jersey for money, yet I'm walking around and I can barely afford books, or I
can't buy McDonald's
or whatever. Right, exactly.
Well, it's kind of hypocritical because all these so-called basketball college experts, they say, well, you go to school and get an education. Hey, sunshine, let me tell you something. Those kids go to school because they have to go to school to make it to the majors. Okay, to make it to the NBA. That's the only thing. And you're making millions of dollars off their name. Okay, and this is what this is about. And people say, oh, they give it. No, I want to know the percentage that actually go to school and actually finish a 4-year career when it comes to, let's say, college, go to Duke. Nobody does.
You look at guys too. Like, I hear about it all the time with guys in the NBA that, like, even guys nowadays in the NBA, they're saying, oh, I just finished my degree. I forget. There was a player recently that just got his degree, and he was been out of school for whatever many years. So, people go back. I mean, they forget sometimes.
A lot of them don't go back because if you're making millions of dollars,
why would you?
Why would you go back? And if you stay, be smart with your money, obviously, and they should be. But again, the NCAA is a bunch of hypocrites. They are. In basketball, very hypocrites because they say you have to go to school, play for a year in college, because guess what? Hey, Duke, if you don't get that big number 1 recruit, you're going to get people in those stands. If you start losing, ain't nobody going to show up. So they're just a bunch of hypocrites. If those kids should, you know what? They bring so many million. It's not the coaching. They can say, oh, the coach. No. Hey, let me forget it. Hey, Coach K, if you don't have the players, I don't care how good you are, you ain't going to win. That's a coach. You got to have the players. You know what I mean? So for them to say that, oh, to get an education, that's a bunch of hypocrites, okay? So if they use those kids' name, guess what? Those kids should be able to go walk into a McDonald's and they should get 4 hamburgers instead of 1, and the school should pay for it because you're making so much money off these kids, okay? Because I guarantee you the average college basketball coach has got to be making close to $1 million.
Most of the college basketball players are the most paid public figure in their state. So they get paid more than like any politician. Like
coaches,
the coaches are
okay.
Most paid public figure in their state.
Sure. But again, it's one of those things that, as a society, they're very hypocritical about it because, first of all, you're a hypocrite because you're making money, billions of dollars, and you're funding for all the other college sports that don't bring any money to your school.
Mm-hmm.
They don't bring any money at all, because I don't know, but I don't think tennis or golf brings any money to that school.
Not as much as basketball.
Those kids go there and they get a scholarship to go there. So that money for the education has got to come somewhere. And guess where it's coming from? Basketball and football. So they can sit there and act like, well, this and that, but you know what? You get money from TV, you get money from your conference. We're talking close to billions of dollars. Now, these again, mind you, an executive at a college or a president of a college or even the AD of a college, they make some pretty good money. So again, and you're making that because why? Because 4 years you get an education. Because as you guys well know, you both went to college, of course. And a college education is very expensive in this country. Very expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So for people to say that these kids they go to school and they get no because they go to school for 1 year or two just to they can get into the real world. So you're stopping them from making a living. You know, if they go back to get a degree, that's up to them. But don't say that you give them an education because you guys went around. But when Patrick Ewing won the NCAA championship, you couldn't even speak. So you're telling me you give them an education? No. You know, I mean, and that's the whole thing. So they act like, and if I think Patrick might have stayed 3 years in college. I'm not sure, or maybe 4. But now look at Patrick, and God bless him. He's a hell of a coach at Georgetown, his alma mater, which is great. But again, these guys can even say they couldn't even put a sentence together. So don't tell me you're teaching these kids. You're not. They're there in the factory making money for a school.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yep.
This hasn't changed. You know, obviously now with AAU and there's a lot of better AAU programs. There's a lot of great AAU programs that help these kids get to the next level and coaches that care about these kids. It's not about get you to the next level. Maybe I can get a job as a scout for you. You know what I mean? And that still goes on a lot too in colleges, a lot. So, but that'll be another story for another topic, gentlemen.
I think so. Well, I think we should get this wrapped up here. Bulls are about to tip off against the Nuggets. I know we're all excited to go watch that. And the Lakers are only up 1 at halftime against the Celtics. So hopefully Celtics can come out and beat them up pretty good.
All right, Dad. Early prediction. Who do you think's winning? Who do you think's winning the game tonight? Bulls or Nuggets?
Where are they playing at, by the way?
They're playing at Colorado.
I think the Bulls will win. I think the Nuggets are not very good. I don't think the elevation is going to affect them at all, which it shouldn't. But I think the Bulls are going to win. The Bulls are, you know, I'm very impressed because they really just have one center, right?
And he's out.
And he's out. Okay. They got those guys, and I'll tell you what. What's his name? The guy, the white kid from the Lakers that they got.
Caruso.
I tell you what, he can play some defense, you know, and
he's a top 3 in steals right now.
Plus 28 against the Lakers without scoring the basket.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? I think the Bulls will win tonight, and I'm a Bulls fan, obviously, but I'm kind of hoping the Bulls actually make the playoffs, which I think they will if they keep this up. Mm-hmm. And it's just a bunch of young players. They have a good coach who's just as young as they are, so it's not some old fart that's going to tell you, you know. So
you have a good vet.
The Bulls will be good.
You have a good vet with DeRozan coming in, 2-point mid-range specialist. I think he's really going to help Zach LaVine find a good path as well and keep him progressing in the right direction. Because when we first got Zach, I was like, oh, he's just a dunker. He's not gonna all about the showboating. And I've really liked his growth and where he's come from in the past 5 years that we've had him.
Well, at least the Bulls are not getting players past their prime, like Dwayne Wade and stuff like that. Like
Dwayne Wade, Rondo.
Yeah, exactly. Guys that, you know what, they're just there so they can collect their paycheck, whatever. They're not going to help you win, so why even bring them in? I think it brings fans to the stands, and that's what they're looking at.
Yep.
Why I wouldn't pay to see Rondo. I mean, come on, really? Dwayne, no, buddy, you're
not anymore.
No, you're past. You're past your prime. So why do we want to go see you for? So you can pull a hamstring? So
yeah, exactly.
But again, you know, but if the Bulls do win a championship this year, I'm gonna have to swallow my words when it comes about having a true legit big man.
Well, I mean, Vucevic, he'll be back. He was out for the COVID protocol, so he should be back after the road trip. And then I know we've been talking about possibly trading Patrick Williams or Kobe White to get like another center like Marvin Bagley III or Jeremy Grant. And I know those have been big trade talk rumors. You know, if we can get another big man just help out Vucevic, get him off the floor for a few minutes so that way he doesn't get burnt out midway through the season.
But I think Tony Bradley's doing a decent job right now.
He
knows his role. He sets good screens. He's passing the ball. He's hustling out there. So like I said, I mean, he's doing a good job right now, but the problem is that they're going to need that inside scoring, and that's where Vucevic really helps them. So until then, they're really relying on mid range and perimeter scoring and attacking the basket and slashing, which is fine. But once in a while, you got to be able to dump it down to your big man and say, go to work. So
Yeah, because you know what, 3-pointers, you're not hot every night when it comes to 3-pointers. So
Absolutely not.
you start missing, you got to find another option, and it's probably going inside. So,
yeah.
All righty.
Well, Dad, we appreciate you being on the Coach Mike and OB podcast. You have been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully maybe we'll have you on again. I don't know.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much. Thanks for having me. And if you want to talk college basketball, please let me know. Thank you very much, both of you, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, excuse me, El Branca.
Yes.
Congratulations on your wedding, bud.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching this episode of Coach Mike and OB. Full episodes of this podcast will be released every Monday, and segments such as this will be released every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.